Your sick daughter is damaging our family's image. My sister Violet announced it at Christmas Eve dinner, her wine glass catching the light from the dining room chandelier. We have standards to uphold. I was seated at the far end of the table. My 7-year-old daughter, Hazel, was asleep upstairs after another exhausting round of treatments. The turkey grew cold on my plate as 20 pairs of eyes watched me with varying degrees of disgust. "Violet's right," my brother Albert added, adjusting his Rolex. "We're Caldwells. We're a respected family. Having a child with that condition reflects poorly on all of us. Do you know what people are saying at the country club?" "They're asking questions," Violet continued, warming to her theme. "Questions we shouldn't have to answer. Why isn't she in a specialized facility? Why do you bring her to family gatherings? Don't you see how uncomfortable it makes everyone?" My mother dabbed her lips with a linen napkin, silent. My father nodded slowly, his jaw set in that familiar line of disappointment I had known my entire life. The same look he'd given me when I announced my pregnancy, when I decided to raise Hazel alone, when I moved into a modest apartment instead of accepting his conditional support. "Perhaps," Aunt Lillian suggested delicately, "there are homes, places better equipped than your small apartment. The child would receive proper care, and you could focus on getting your life back on track. There's an excellent state-funded facility near Waterbury, very clean, very professional." "I visited one," my cousin Mabel added helpfully, "for my volunteer work. They have activities and group therapy. The children seem quite content." "Quite content," I repeated under my breath, tasting the words. I looked down at my hands, saw them trembling slightly, not with rage, but with exhaustion. 3 years of hospital visits, fights with the insurance company, and all-nighters researching experimental treatments while my daughter fought for something resembling a normal life. "Her name is Hazel," I said, my voice low. "Don't be dramatic," Violet snapped, her perfectly manicured nails tapping the table. "We're trying to help. You've let yourself go completely. Look at you. That's a dress from the sale rack, isn't it?" My cousin Mabel let out a small laugh behind her hand. "I saw your car in the driveway, that aging sedan. How embarrassing." "The medical bills must be crushing you," Uncle Ernest said, not without a certain kindness. "We understand, but there are options. Government programs, Medicaid, state-funded facilities. We can't have the Caldwell name associated with charity cases," my father declared coldly. "Your choices have consequences, Francis." I stood up slowly, pushing my chair back. "I should go check on Hazel." "Running away, as usual," Albert muttered. "You can't face reality." I walked upstairs to the guest room where Hazel was sleeping, her small chest rising and falling steadily. The medicine made her sleep deeply, a mercy after the pain she endured while awake. I sat on the edge of the bed and pulled out my phone. The screen glowed with notifications. The hospital's billing department had sent the monthly summary. I swiped through the charges, each one a blade I'd learned to bear. $65,000 for the most recent treatment cycle, $15,000 for specialist consultations, $10,000 for the medications that kept Hazel as comfortable as possible. But there were other accounts on my phone, accounts my family knew nothing about. My mother's preferred out-of-network oncologist, $3,000 a month. My father's cardiologist at a private clinic, $5,000 per quarter. The second mortgage on the family's country house in the Berkshires, which Dad's firm couldn't sustain after the market downturn, $7,500 a month. Uncle Ernest's experimental heart medication, $2,000 a month. Aunt Lillian's rheumatology treatments, $500 a month. 4 years of payments, 48 months of quietly plugging leaks while they discussed my failures over holiday dinners. I opened my banking app and went to the account management section. My finger hovered over several recurring payment authorizations. Then I began to cancel them, one by one. Laughter drifted up from downstairs. Someone had put on music. They had already moved past the awkward moment of my departure and returned to their celebration of self. I typed a message into the group chat my siblings maintained. "By the way, I'm going to stop paying for Mom's medical expenses I've been covering, and Dad's cardiologist bills too. You can manage your family image now. I turned off the phone and carefully lifted a sleeping Hazel into my arms, carrying her out to the car. We would stay at a hotel tonight, somewhere quiet, somewhere we didn't have to justify our existence. The weekend passed in a blur of room service and children's movies. Hazel felt well enough to laugh at the cartoons, her spirits lighter in the absence of familial judgment. I ignored the flood of calls and texts lighting up my phone. Monday morning came with a different kind of notification. The hospital's automated billing system sent a confirmation. All payer authorizations for the accounts of Lillian Caldwell have been canceled. All recurring payments for the cardiology treatments of Ernest Caldwell have been stopped. The mortgage support program for the Caldwell family property has been terminated. My email showed the full domino effect. The specialty pharmacy flagged my mother's account for non-payment. The private imaging center sent a past due notice to my father. The estate manager scheduled a review meeting about the lapsed mortgage support. Uncle Ernest's cardiac surgeon's office left 3 voicemails about payment arrangements. The foundation I had built under their lives was crumbling, one authorization at a time. I had been paying those bills for 4 years, ever since the buyout of my tech company left me with resources my family never suspected I had. While they saw my modest apartment and my old car, they never asked why I seemed so calm about the astronomical costs of Hazel's care. They never questioned how a single mother was managing private specialists and experimental treatments. They assumed I was sinking, barely getting by, a cautionary tale they could cite when discussing the importance of marrying well and making the right choices. Finally, my phone rang with a number I recognized, my mother. Her voice was strained. "Francis, the hospital called. They say there's an error with my payment arrangements." "There's no error, Mom." "I don't understand. They said you've been the responsible party on my accounts for years. That's impossible. You don't have that kind of money." "I do, actually, and I have for quite a while." The silence stretched between us. I could hear her breathing, trying to process information that didn't fit her narrative of me. "The company I founded," I continued quietly, "it sold for $250 million 3 years ago. A health data analytics platform that helps hospitals reduce costs and improve patient outcomes. Ironic, isn't it? I built technology that helps families like ours navigate medical systems. I kept it private because I wanted Hazel to have a normal childhood, not grow up as a target for fortune hunters and fake friends. I've been covering your medical expenses since Dad's insurance stopped paying for your preferred specialists. I've been helping with the mortgage on the property since Dad's firm took those losses. Uncle Ernest's heart treatments and Lillian's medication costs. All of it. The buyout was in the tech industry news. You never knew because you had already decided what my life was. A struggling single mother in a cheap apartment with an old car. That story was comfortable for you. It explained why I couldn't make every family function, why I looked tired, why I wore dresses from the sale rack. "Why would you do it?" she whispered, her voice fading. "They're your family. Despite everything, they're my family," I thought. I believed that if I helped quietly, if I proved myself useful, one day they might see Hazel in me as worthy of belonging. "Francis, honey, we never—" "Mom, you called my daughter that condition to my face. At a family dinner, you suggested institutionalizing her so the Caldwell name wouldn't be tarnished. Violet was just upset. She has her own—" "I don't care." My voice was steady, calm. I have spent 4 years managing everyone's problems while raising a child with complex medical needs on my own. I have liquidated investments, restructured portfolios, and handled this entire family's financial emergencies. And last Thursday, I sat at that table and listened to 20 people discuss whether my daughter's existence was an acceptable social liability. The hotel room was quiet, save for Hazel's soft breathing. She had woken up and was coloring in her activity book, content in our temporary sanctuary. "The bills are going to start arriving this week," I said. "Mom's imaging center doesn't do payment plans. They demand payment in full in 30 days, or they suspend care. Dad's cardiologist requires quarterly deposits of $20,000. The quarterly property tax of $12,000 is due in 30 days. Uncle Ernest's cardiologist bills are monthly, and he's already 3 months behind since I stopped covering him. That's $6,000 past due. And Aunt Lillian's medications are $2,500 a month, and most pharmacies won't fill scripts if there's an outstanding balance. I let the numbers sink in. These were no longer abstract concepts. They were real bills with real deadlines arriving in their real mailboxes. "Francis, please, you can't." "I can. The bank confirmed the cancellation of all authorizations this morning." My father's voice came through in the background, distant but clear. "Put it on speaker." I heard the click, and suddenly I was speaking to them both. "You made your fortune and you didn't say anything." My father's tone carried that familiar disappointment, now laced with bewilderment. "I didn't say anything because the moment any of you knew I had resources, I would have become an ATM instead of a daughter. I wanted to help because you were family, not because I was useful." "That's not fair," my mother protested. "We love you." "You love the version of me that needs you. The struggling single mother who made poor choices and is facing the consequences. That version confirms your worldview. The successful version who has been funding your lifestyle for years, that version makes you uncomfortable." Hazel looked up from her drawing, sensing the tension in my voice. I smiled at her, keeping my tone even. "Here is what's happening next," I said. "I am going to continue building my life with Hazel. I've enrolled her in a new school with an excellent inclusion program and support for special educational needs. We're moving into a larger place, closer to her treatment center. I am going to expand my new venture and focus on my real family." "We are your real family," my father insisted. "You told me my daughter brings down the family's image. That isn't family. That's a brand you're protecting." Albert's voice cut in, aggressive. "You can't blackmail us into accepting your choices." "I'm not blackmailing anyone. I'm simply no longer financing people who see my child as a social risk. The bills I was paying are now your responsibility. The treatments, the specialists, the property costs, it's all yours." "We can't afford all that," my mother said, panic creeping into her voice. "Your father's insurance only covers a portion." "Then you'll have to make choices. Downsize the property, use in-network doctors, apply for assistance, all the things you suggested I do while I was raising Hazel." Violet's voice came through, sharp and angry. "You're being petty, punishing us for one dinner conversation." "No, Violet, I'm setting a boundary. There's a difference." My brother spoke again. "How much did you say your company sold for?" "That's no longer your concern, Albert." "Francis, be reasonable." Uncle Ernest's voice joined the crowded call. "We're family. We support each other." "I have supported you for 4 years. The records don't lie. I have spreadsheets of every payment, every emergency I covered, every temporary loan you never paid back. The support has been extraordinarily one-sided. The silence on the other end told me they were processing this new reality. The family's black sheep had been the financial bedrock keeping their comfortable lives stable. The daughter they looked down on had been the safety net they never acknowledged. "We can discuss this reasonably," my father finally said, shifting into the negotiating tone he used in business. "Perhaps we were harsh. Hazel is welcome at family gatherings. Of course, we will be more thoughtful. I don't want feigned acceptance. I want genuine respect for both of us." "That's what we're offering you," he insisted. "No, Dad. You're offering tolerance because you realized I control resources you need. It's not the same." Hazel finished her page and brought it to me to see. A family of flowers in a garden, each one different but growing together in the same soil. I hugged her tight, this child who saw the world with more wisdom than the adults who judged her. "I have to go," I said. "Hazel and I have appointments today." "Wait," my mother pleaded. "Can we see you? Talk this through?" "Maybe someday, when I'm ready, when Hazel is ready, on our terms, not yours." I ended the call and turned the phone off completely. The hotel room felt peaceful in the silence. Hazel climbed into my lap, her small arms wrapping around my neck. "Are we going home now?" she asked. "We're going to our new home," I told her, "a place where we are wanted, exactly as we are." The new apartment had 3 bedrooms and a dedicated room for medical supplies, so the equipment wouldn't invade her space. The building had an accessible playground and neighbors with children facing different challenges. No one stared. There, Hazel would just be Hazel. The messages piled up over the next few days. Angry ones from Albert about family loyalty, desperate ones from my mother about payment deadlines, calculating ones from Violet suggesting we could move past this misunderstanding. But my decision was made. I had spent years being the invisible support system for people who couldn't see my value until it was gone. Hazel deserved better. She deserved a mother who set boundaries and demanded respect. She deserved a life where she wasn't discussed as a liability, but celebrated as a person. The family property would probably have to be sold. The luxury medical care my parents preferred would have to be downgraded. Uncle Ernest would discover what in-network cardiology was like. Aunt Lillian would learn about generic medications. They would learn the same lessons they had expected me to learn: how to make do with less, how to navigate systems without connections, how to make difficult choices. But unlike me, they wouldn't have someone quietly plugging the gaps. They would have no invisible safety net to catch them when they fell. They would have exactly what they offered me: suggestions about government programs and specialized facilities, advice on adjusting expectations and accepting reality. I packed up Hazel's things and we checked out of the hotel. Our new apartment waited on the other side of the city, already furnished, already safe. A place where medical equipment wouldn't have to be hidden in shame, where my daughter's differences would be accommodated, not criticized. As I buckled Hazel into her car seat, my phone vibrated one last time before I silenced it completely. The hospital's billing department confirming my mother's account was now past due. The estate manager noting the mortgage support had lapsed. The specialty pharmacy requesting new payment information for the prescriptions. The consequences were beginning, not for me this time, but for the family who spent years judging me while standing on the foundation I had built beneath their feet. I drove toward our future, my daughter humming in the back seat, and I felt lighter than I had in years. The weight of their approval had been crushing me. The burden of their acceptance had cost me my peace. Now I had something better: self-respect, boundaries, and the certainty that my daughter would grow up knowing her worth wasn't determined by people too blind to see it. The image of the Caldwell family would either survive or it wouldn't. Either way, it was no longer my responsibility to maintain.